I think the best way to introduce you to Stephen and Robin Larsen is to let you see my journey to their place. It's up in New Paltz, called Stone Mountain. It's an incredible place that displays their talents, and those talents also involve inviting the community in to participate in them. So I'm going to leave you for a little bit with Stephen playing the piano and following me on my journey up to his house. While we're traveling up to the home of Steve and Robin, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Steve from my personal point of view, as he was a classmate of mine at Columbia, and he was a wonderful wrestler and gymnast, and soon took up the cliff climbing. I didn't know he was a guy who was handy with his hands, but I found that out later when he lived down in the village, in East Village. He just constructed a whole loft for himself. And he continued that tradition when he bought Stone Mountain and turned it into a retreat, basically, for his kind of thinking. His two children are professional trapeze artists and tumblers, and they work with people in show business out in Hollywood. So this is a guy who's a thinker, written over 40 books, but he's a doer. He gets things done. And as you go through the woods here to his place, and he owns the property, is that you'll see many houses constructed, barns, that kind of thing. Stephen did all of this. He kind of took over a defunct farm. I think there's one building was originally there, and everything else has been constructed by him and people who have come to live here or to simply help him. So he and Robin have a full day. Now here's Stephen's home. It's all hand built. Just it's just a wonderful house inside and outside, and that kind of gnomic structure, But as we approach their home, we go up a little rise here. I had been here about 15 years, 20 years before, and all I remember, it was the most fantastic place I had seen. I came at night So when you see some of the buildings and you see some of the things they do, some of the festivals they throw, of which those costumes and masks are all around, that you'll get some idea as to why I was so startled. And I just thought it was the greatest thing I had seen, that two people could construct something like this and keep it going. And you'll see some of his outer buildings, the farms, and the rest. In the meantime, I'm going to let them talk a little bit about their lives as we just go through the grounds. The grounds will speak for themselves, basically. You'll see the extent of what they've attempted to do. And I'm going to start. I'm going to ask them something about their kids, because that's how we all start to live through our kids eventually. You know, they take over and they carry us into future generations. So here's a little bit of Steve and Robin, and we're going to start talking about their kids. We're going to keep playing the property in the background. Let's have at it.
Tell me about your children. What they're doing, how old they are, their names, all that stuff.
Well, our son Merlin was conceived in 1968, the first night that we slept on this farm. And it was really different. We made love, as we often did, quite often when we were younger. And we both knew that there was something different. I said, something happened that time. And she said, oh yeah, something happened. And that was the night that we conceived him. He was born 9 months later. And he lived on the farm all during his formative years. He learned to rock climb and horseback ride and generally have an outdoor life. And he, part of his interest was to develop vertical dance technology profiles, so actually dancing on the surface of mountains and on rocks, and making that a theatrical performance art. And that's what he did. So his company is now called Air Realistic. He has 2 kids, and he lives in Los Angeles, in Topanga Canyon.
And he did have training in dance from some very, very fine dancers. And he also, I think he worked with Jonathan Fox some in role play, and some of his dance on ceilings was done in the ceilings of caves.
Wow, and his name is Merlin, right?
Yes.
His name is Merlin.
And he has a middle name?
Stephen.
Of course. Merlin Stephen. And you have a daughter,
Yes.
who is also a dancer, stunt woman, everything. Acrobat.
Gwyneth was born 8 years later. We had just come back from a year in India, and
With Merlin, he traveled with us.
yeah, Merlin traveled with us at 6 to 7 years of age. Traveled to India with us.
Wow.
It was an amazing formative experience. We spent almost a year traveling abroad: India, Afghanistan, Greece, Turkey. I had a sabbatical leave year, so it was really quite amazing. And he said it was very, very influential, very informative for him to watch his parents at work and at play in these exotic environments.
That's a wonderful thing, isn't it, to actually see what you do for work. Most kids don't see their parents work. You know that story. Today they don't know what they do. They go off in a train and they come back and they have a drink. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't see the sweat or the victory and the agony of defeat and all the rest of it, and the victory of victory, whatever it happens to be when you do something great, you know.
They were both often there with us working, and as we were traveling in Asia, we rode in rice trucks. We traveled in back of a big rice truck up into the Himalayas to Kathmandu, and Merlin had his monkey companion, which some of that material has been published, but so Merlin traveled with his monkey over most of it through the Asian travels.
He was in danger of running off with the wild temple monkeys, and we were told it was really, really dangerous. So we got him his own monkeys, like a little monkey about this big, and that was his constant companion. It was called Spider-Man, or Coo for short. And Spider-Man was great, except when he got pissed off, he threw all our worldly possessions out the windows of a hotel in Greece, and there was a huge crowd below waiting in the street to receive every largesse that the monkey gave them. He got really pissed off because we didn't take him to dinner.
He'd been in most of the places we'd been in, he'd been able to go with us to dinner everywhere, even all over Greece. But we went to a restaurant that we couldn't take a monkey to. We came back, he was dancing up and down on the balcony. He had gotten the windows open, and the monkeys have 4 hands. We have
Like a miniature King Kong. Yeah, he threw all our possessions in the
throwing
street.
toothbrushes.
Clothes, underpants, bras, everything.
He waved them around.
The Greeks were all cheering.
They were all Greek sailors down there, and they were all cheering and going, you know.
Now, how about your daughter now, the one who's the stunt woman?
So
Where did she fit out? 8 years later,
8
we
years
came
later.
back from Asia.
right? And the same magical event. Did you know that was a DJ?
We did.
Again.
We knew it. Yeah.
What a guy.
Again, we knew it the night that she was conceived. We knew that was the case, and she was a real gift. We just knew that when we had her. She's always been resourceful, kind of smart. She's rather beautiful, and she just gets along with people, and she has like huge circles of friends. People everywhere love her. And,
Who do they take after?
They're an interesting mix.
So they actually mix, because my kids are, they're kind of mixed sometimes, you know, but I met a family once where the girls look exactly like the mother. It was like the man had no DNA whatsoever in the adventure, and the boys looked exactly like the father. They were different looking people. The mom was a redhead, the other guy was a brunette, you know, the different color eyes, different structure. I said, wow, you know, do these people ever mix, you know? They mix, but the genes didn't mix. But anyway, I was just always curious about that.
Yeah, no, I think ours are quite an interesting mix.
Yeah.
Gwynnie was a dancer from the very start. She was a dancer in the womb. I always said that Merlin did karate in the womb, and Gwynnie did Tai Chi because she moved like this. But I don't know, Steve mentioned that Merlin was also trained in martial arts from very young and was quite talented. And he was, even after he had some serious injuries, he was in rock climbing. He was in the Empire State Games and placed in wrestling, I think it was. Judo.
So he was a contender.
Yeah, he's a contender.
Wow.
And Gwynnie, for her part, was prepared for her career as a ninja by Merlin and a couple of his good friends, because she was their little experimental creature. They would dress her in ninja costumes when she was about this high and dangle her in ropes from various things. And she learned to get out of almost any kind of knots and hang upside down and climb all kinds of strange things because her brother and his friends were, she was like their G.I. Joe doll. I mean, that's basically what Merlin remarked at one point. She's a full, you know, active, alive G.I. Joe doll. You know?
Where is she doing her stunt double work now? She has a company, she's a small company, right? Was it New York or?
They both were in a company originally called De La Guarda in New York. It's really quite famous, the largest off-Broadway show in New York. And Merlin was the rigger. He was the guy who kept everybody flying. And Gwyneth got auditioned and got a job with them. It's now called Fuerza Bruta. It's an Argentine theater company, very successful. They packed 400 or 500 people a night into this thing.
Wow.
They performed all over the world with those two productions. They were in Israel, they were in Korea, they were two seasons in Korea.
Las Vegas.
The show goes everywhere.
Germany.
I mean, yeah. Gwynnie also had her training originally from the Vanover Caravan.
Okay, you told us about that the other day.
So that was very important. And years of traveling and performing with the Vanovers.
World folk dance, yeah, they're great.
So they really had a magical life in some senses, didn't they? They're non-scholastic, right? They didn't follow that path. And what did you have?
Gwynnie is quite.
Merlin finished his community college education, and both of us have PhDs, and we urged him to go back. And he said, I think I'd rather explore around. And he went to Mexico, and he went climbing, and he had adventures and stuff like that. Gwyneth, after her community college education, went on to Sarah Lawrence and got a degree in dance. Did very well.
She also had secondary majors in Greek classics.
But they're
Not
performers.
studying Greek,
But they
theater.
they have that performing part of you,
Yeah.
right? That went to the front right away.
She She is the godchild of Joseph Campbell and Jean Erdman, the
Oh,
dancer.
wow.
Yeah.
So that was,
Yes, and they were very supportive godparents. They
that's,
were
it,
wonderful.
it's so wonderful to hear stories about successful children. You know what I mean? How they grow and blossom, and they're, you know, because you work with a lot of kids like I did. It's just so fragile. Sometimes they just don't make it at all. You know, they go off on, even from very wealthy and very gifted parents, they just don't. They just squander or whatever it is. They don't blossom as your kids have done.
I think that this whole community around here, not just here on the farm, but all around, is very strongly invested in its children. And we did cooperative. We ran a cooperative homeschool here with a number of kids who were in the Vanover Caravan were dancing or dancing with other dancers. That was really good because they did have to be out of school a lot and they had to travel and perform. So that worked really well. And I think that all of the Beltane Festival itself is an example.
Yes.
Everybody comes up, the parents all show up, you know, those children dancing on the stage. And
It's a whole community of
Yeah.
people like yourself. So that's
And
that's
there
great.
is the rich lore, the mythological lore,
Sure.
the folklore of all these different cultures. And, you know, the kids are all races, so it's just, the folklore comes from everywhere.
I think it's healthier to have kids in a community that has some coherence than in the standard American nuclear family, because then all the pathology of your nuclear family gets amplified.
Yes.
And if you diversify your portfolio with lots of relationships, you have other people to both admire and to loathe who are not your parents. You know, and you can diversify your social portfolio in that way. And so the kids had a lot of examples of how to live well and how not to live well, and they had lots of friends of all ages and generations.
Yes.
And, you know, and they learned skills like Merlin is just like a whiz at, you know, knots and carpentry and building things in his hands and
Forging, working in metal, he's
Wow.
blacksmith.
Well, he got that from you. I mean,
Steelsmith.
that always amazes me that
a
That you're
bit,
so
yeah,
skilled.
but he also studied with other people as well.
Okay.
And
Yeah, which is important.
Yeah.
You know, really,